Now we're going to take a look at the vector library, which is part of the STL library in C++. And this vectors in C++ behave a lot like arrays to the point where we can easily create them similarly like we would any other array. We got to give it a data type, but first keyword vector. Then the data type goes in between this less than and greater than symbol. Then you need to give it a name. We'll just say my hours. And you got to give it a size, but not in brackets, in parentheses. And in this case, we'll just say 3. And we'll end it there. So that's how we would create an array of some size, typically, right, with a number there. Syntax a little different than an array, right? This is creating a vector of integers, and right now it's going to hold 3 values. Just like arrays, we can create an array and initialize it right off the bat, and that would determine the size. So again, with the curly brackets, right, we can put some names in here. Put a couple in here. Myself, Joe. Alright, just leave it at that for 2. Alright, semicolon. Alright, so now we have our vectors created. We can treat them, like I said, like arrays. So I'm just gonna, well, the hours, we gotta set a couple of them so you can see the values set to them. Just like arrays, we can index into them. I'll set this one to 99. We'll just copy and paste that line, change the value. Alright, change the index, of course. And 55 and 22. Alright, then I'm just going to output those values. Alright, we're going to output the first one. Put one on each line so I can simply cut and paste and change the index. And we'll do the same thing with the other one. So now, of course, it's my names, indexing at 0, and indexing to the other one. Alright, let's give that a run there. Show you that the values are being set and the vectors are created, and then we can output them correctly. And there's the result of running that program, the 3 values I put into the vector and the 2 strings that I initialized my vector. So it knows this vector, my names, has a size of 2, and the my hours has a size of 3. Alright, so that's treating it as an array. Not the most useful thing. Anything you can do with an array, you can do pretty much with the vector also, in the same syntax that we've been doing it in. But the vector has some built-in functionality that we like to use. Right? Of course, we can use vectors with loops and use the indexing of loops just like we did with arrays also. Alright, so all the input and everything else. But a vector has a function called pushback, excuse me, which will put something onto the array for you, or the vector in this case, excuse me. Alright, so we got those outputted there. Let's add something else afterwards, right here, about here, into my hours. And once you hit the dot operator, you'll see that there's many things there, but I'm going to do a pushback. And we're going to put on, what numbers we got there, 99, 55, 22, how about 101? Push that to the back. Alright, and then I'm going to output those values again with the additional one now, which would be at index 3. And let's run that now. So now I should see a 101 at the end of my list of numbers. And oops, sorry. There you go. There's the 99, 55, 22 for the first 3 outputs. Then it repeats it again, 99, 55, 22, and the 101. So it puts it on the end. It adds space to the vector, even though we didn't create it to the right size, to hold that 101. the pushback dynamically allocated the array or the vector again to be bigger and add the one value in. So each time you do that pushback, it puts a value at the end of the vector and makes space for it. And same thing whether it's a string data type or any other data type, that all works for you. Alright, so you saw once we typed in the vector name, several options came up. Right, this is the pushback to show you it. I can also use indexing, as you see, to get the data out, even though I did a push. Alright, so the interaction does not matter. Alright, taking something off the list. Alright, let's go back to the code here. And we'll just keep working with these numbers here. So now I'm going to say my hours. Do the dot again. Now you're going to see pop back. Alright, that actually removes an item from the list. Okay, once you do that, the size should change. So what I'm going to do here, show you another function of the vector from my hours, is the size operator. Alright, and it returns a number. So let's output something. Right, that's going to return the size, meaning how many things are in there, the pushback, and then we'll get the size again right after that, showing you that what the result of that will be. So we got a couple new things here. The push back puts something onto the vector at the end of it. Push back takes the thing off at the end of the list. Alright, I didn't put in a new line. Let's do that now. There we go. Make our output a little cleaner so you can see everything better. Alright, and push back takes it off the back of the vector. Alright, and there we go, same output, the first three values, then we push the 101 on, there it is at the end of the values. Before we do the pop, the size is 4, we do the pop, it drops down to 3. Alright, so we again resize the vector for us to hold the amount of data. So when you pop something, the vector actually shrinks in size. That's why having this size function is nice. You can always just use that in your loops, right? Determine how many items are in the vector. You don't need to keep track of that any other way. It does that for you. Alright, so that's 3 of the functions that it provides for you. Going down my list here, right? Quick way to empty out the list. Alright, well, your vector here. Alright, let's do the hours again. Oops. And there's a clear function on it. Alright, oops, need that semicolon there, and we'll check the size again. Alright. So this will run again, and after the clear, the size is now 0. Alright, so I took everything out, resized it again downward to see if it was empty or not. I mean to clear it out. Alright, I was thinking empty because there is an empty function. Alright, so with an if, I can come in and say my hours. Oops, what happened? Alright, dot empty. Oops. Don't know what happened to my list there. See, EMPT, there it is, empty. Alright, scroll down a little. It is a function. If it's empty, then we're going to see out alright. Else we're going to see out alright, so obviously at this point this vector should come up with empties since we did the clear on it. Alright, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other vector that we currently have down here, except change obviously this to my name. There we go, so we should see that it's empty once and not empty the second time through. Alright, and there we have the vector is empty after the first list there. Right, we showed them 2 names, so we know it's not empty at that point. Alright, and there's a lot of other functions built into the vectors. There's a reverse function that actually reverses all the data that's currently in the array and then display it, right? And then you can display it and you'll see that it is backwards. What's another one out there? Resize. You can physically yourself resize the array, or the vector I mean, into a different size. It will have empty spaces, right? And you can then also provide it a value that you want to initialize it to. So let's do something with this one here, the my names, right? And we're going to resize that one. That's to show you how this one works, because it's not as straightforward as the other ones that are in here. Like the reverse, you don't provide anything, it automatically just reverses it. Alright, so how many more elements we want to add? Let's add 2 more elements. Right. Resize it up to 4, I mean. Right? And we're going to default all those other ones to, these are names. Let's put the girl's name in there so you see the difference. Alright, and this time we'll put a for loop in here and use that to get into our vector again, and it also shows you the use of the size that can be used. Right, size function. Alright, and we're just going to see out my names at the index, and we'll put a new line at the end of that one. Alright, so now we should see the list of names. Should be a total of 4 names. And here's that result. So at the very end we have the Rich, the Joe, the Mary, and the Mary. Right, first Rich and Joe are coming from the 2 cout statements above the resize. Once I resize it, it's up to 4 items, and the things that didn't have values, the 2 additional things I added because it was already a size of 2, got the name Mary assigned to it. So you can give it a default once you resize it. Alright. There's also a function called swap, which will take 2 vectors and swap the data that's in the 2 of them and swap them out. If you go through the list, you'll see there's many other options in there, and we can spend the whole class probably talking about the different options that are available to us. Oops, just to give you a quick look there. Oops, my names. Alright, scroll down a little there. Here's the list. You can see, based on the scroll bar, there's quite a bit in there that you can do a lot with. Alright, some of them are more advanced. Right, there's the push and the pop to the back. Alright, and bunch of other options in there. There's the empty we talked about, and so forth.